How to use timeit module. How do I use timeit to compare the performance of my own functions such as insertion_sort and tim_sort?
The way timeit works is to run setup code once and then make repeated calls to a series of statements. So, if you want to test sorting, some care is required so that one pass setting in place sort doesn't affect the next pass with already sorted data. That, of course, would make the temp sort really shine because it performs best when the data already partially ordered. Here's an example of how to set up a test for sorting. Note that the series of statements makes a fresh copy of the unsorted data on every pass. Also, note the timing technique of running the measurement suite 7 times and keeping only the best time. This can really help reduce measurement distortions due to other processes running on your system. Those are my tips for using timeit correctly.
If you want to use timeit in an interactive Python session, there are 2 convenient options. Use the IPython shell. It features a convenient %timeit special function. In a standard Python interpreter, you can access functions and other names you defined earlier during the interactive session by importing them from _main_ in the setup statement.
I'll let you in on a secret: the best way to use timeit is on the command line. On the command line, timeit does proper statistical analysis. It tells you how long the shortest run took. This is good because all error in timing is positive. So the shortest time has the least error in it. There's no way to get negative error because a computer can't ever compute faster than it can compute. So, the command line interface. That's quite simple, eh? You can set stuff up. Which is useful, too. If you want multiple lines, you can either use the shell's automatic continuation or use separate arguments. That gives a setup of and times. If you want to have longer scripts, you might be tempted to move to timeit inside a Python script. I suggest avoiding that because the analysis and timing is simply better on the command line. Instead, I tend to make shell scripts. This can take a bit longer due to the multiple initializations, but normally that's not a big deal. But what if you want to use timeit inside your module? Well, the simple way is to do. And that gives you cumulative, not minimum, time to run that number of times. To get a good analysis, use .repeat and take the minimum. You should normally combine this with functools.partial instead of lambda column ... to lower overhead. Thus you could have something like You can also do which would give you something closer to the interface from the command line, but in a much less cool manner. The from _main _import ... lets you use code from your main module inside the artificial environment created by timeit. It's worth noting that this is a convenience wrapper for timer ... timeit ... and so isn't particularly good at timing. I personally far prefer using timer ... repeat ... as I've shown above. Warnings. There are a few caveats with timeit that hold everywhere. Overhead is not accounted for. Say you want to time x plus equals 1, to find out how long addition takes. Well, it's not 0.0476 microseconds. You only know that it's less than that. All error is positive. So try and find pure overhead. That's a good 30% overhead just from timing. This can massively skew relative timings. But you only really cared about the adding timings. The lookup timings for x also need to be included in overhead. The difference isn't much larger, but it's there. Mutating methods are dangerous. But that's completely wrong. X is the empty list after the first iteration. You'll need to reinitialize. But then you have lots of overhead. Account for that separately. Note that subtracting the overhead is reasonable here only because the overhead is a smallish fraction of the time. For your example, it's worth noting that both insertion sort and tim sort have completely unusual timing behaviors for already sorted lists. This means you will require a random shuffle between sorts if you want to avoid wrecking your timings.
If you want to compare two blocks of code, functions quickly you could do